In this episode of Cask and Convos, we sit down with Gabriele Sanguigno, CEO of ToothFairyAI, pioneering business AI with 24/7 autonomous agents. From launching the first AI-driven note-taking app in 2018 to redefining work with custom agents and some bold and challenging predictions about the future of workforce, the conversation left me inspired, and I think you will be too.
Even people think that Gen AI came up with ChatGPT, but actually it's further from the truth. I'll give you an example that everybody has used for sure. Google Translate. Google Translate is based on the exact same technology that ChatGPT is based on. They are called BERT models. ChatGPT is not really the beginning of this AI hype. However, that's what people know. Google spent in the last year $15 billion to create their flagship model, Gemini. Yes. However, after $15 billion of investment, can you see right now, as a consumer, a Google product that you are really desperate to buy, that you cannot find anywhere else, that justifies $15 billion of investment? So Eric Schmidt, in an interview that he gave to Stanford University, if I'm not mistaken, 4 or 5 weeks ago, described what the real objective is of all these Gen AI endeavors, which is not generating your next chatbot that is slightly smarter. What they want to achieve is knowledge supremacy. All the access that you have to the information on the internet, if you think already about what happens today, is gated through some specific platforms. Yes. You don't just go on the internet, you go on Instagram, you go on Facebook, you go on YouTube, Twitter, X, sorry.
So your access is almost their version of what they're showing you.
Your access is the version of the internet that they want you to see.
So then how does Tooth Fairy ensure impartiality? In a world where innovation meets conversation, welcome to Cask and Convos, where the clink of glasses harmonizes with the spark of groundbreaking ideas. I, Shabani, welcome you on behalf of Dot Infinity to the beautiful barrel room of the La Madonna Bar on Little Collins Street, Melbourne. Here we bear honest stories, insightful reflections, and transformative ideas of product leaders from the forefront of technology. Join us as they unwind and provide exclusive insights into what defines their present and how they are steering the future of tech and customer experience. All in a relaxed bar-side chat. Welcome, Gabriele. We are very excited to have you on board. And for the first time ever in this podcast, I don't have any prepared questions. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation because we are just going to push all the boundaries possible.
Absolutely.
I can't wait to hear the answers that you have. And I'm also very excited about your product. So I feel that ToothFairyAI definitely can, has the potential to change the future of workforce as we see. And we'll get to that very soon. But tell us a bit more about how did this thing come about? How did this idea come into your head? What shapes everything?
Yeah, right. Thank you so much for the kind words. I guess that we started ToothFairy almost 5 years ago now, with the realization that before ChatGPT came out, so all this transformative Gen AI hype came out, there was a lot that could be done in the AI space to democratize access to AI models, trying to, first of all, reduce the access barrier to these kind of technologies because they can be daunting in many cases. Many people talk about AI as the black box, which technically is. And also linguistic barriers, because most of these conversations and technological advancements are happening on the mainstream languages for the most part, specifically Mandarin and English, while instead we believe that obviously there is a massive diversity of cultures and languages that, especially in the NLP, natural language processing space, and now in the Gen AI space, need to be embraced as part of the human culture. So that's how we started ToothFairy. I'm sure that you're thinking, how did you come up with the name?
Yeah.
Yeah. Many people think that we are a dental AI solution, which is funny. Even if you ask ChatGPT, it says, yeah, it's a dental surgery AI platform.
Can I be honest? I did the same. I saw you guys for the first time when I had gone to see an AI fair in Sydney.
Yeah,
And I was like, Tooth Fairy AI, there must be something related to healthcare.
absolutely. Dental implants,
Yeah.
you know. Yeah, actually, I could try to spin this up better than what it is, but the real story is that the name was absolutely a joke. So we started with the joke. We said, okay, how can we come up with the most ridiculous name for this, at that time, project? And we thought, okay, something fancy, something magical, something silly, and we came up with ToothFairy. So then ToothFairy.AI came along, we built the logo, and then we thought, okay, maybe after 4 years, we got stuck to it. And that's really how it is.
I think it's a very catchy name, so congratulations on that.
Thanks.
Now, you guys started much before this entire AI hype took place. It must have been a very interesting time because not everybody took AI very seriously until just a few years ago. So it must have been tough trying to get this on the road. Would love to know what happened. What's the story?
Well, I mean, I've always said that at the end of this journey, no matter what the end is, I'm going to write a book, potentially with my platform, with Gen AI, describing what happened. But you're absolutely right. The first 2 years and a half have been terrible. Maybe, and I'm not trying now to discredit or to describe negatively people in the society, because society is all of us. So you should not stand high describing the society from a place. You are part of it. But yeah, people at that time simply did not understand the potential. And even people think that Gen AI came up with ChatGPT, but actually it's further from the truth. Because the transformers architecture that is powering most of this transformation was a paper that came out in 2019. And there were transformers-based models, which is the technology that is enabling all this Gen AI hype. Already in 2020, I'll give you an example that everybody has used for sure. Google Translate. Google Translate is based on the exact same technology that ChatGPT is based on. They are called BERT models, which is bidirectional encoder transformer, which suggests that ChatGPT is not really the beginning of this AI hype. However, that's what people know. On the flip side, when ChatGPT came out, that gave us a massive boost in marketing without paying a penny, because everybody started paying attention. And in fact, we have seen, especially in the last 6 months, we moved from massive hype and unrealistic expectations to what typically happens during change management processes of all sorts. You start going down the slope of adoption and realization of what this market fit for this kind of products could be. And I think that we are probably at the inflection point of the adoption phase. Obviously, I could always say we want it to be faster, we want it to be more and more people trying to jump on board, but the reality is that these things take time. So that's how we see the market at this stage.
Absolutely. And I have noticed a trend that, and a lot of recent reports that have come about around AI adoption have said that the maximum adoption has been by companies which have put in the maximum amount of money and investment into AI, of course. But only about 65% of them have been able to prove that return of investment.
Yes.
So that's a tough curve to follow. And
Yes.
and looking at ToothFairy AI, I believe you are targeting more at small to medium-sized businesses who may not
Yes.
have that kind of funding.
Yes.
You know, they may not have millions of dollars to pump, or forget about millions of dollars. Even a few $1,000 is always a big question.
Yes.
Where people are struggling with hiring resources or getting everyday stuff done, and a lot of times they're also struggling with just one or two people trying to do multiple tasks. So how do you bridge that gap?
It's interesting that probably we're going to be looking at two types of AI platforms or AI solutions in the market, probably for the foreseeable future. There is a game that can be played only by massive big tech, which is the game that gets played in billions of dollars. And obviously, you're talking about probably 4 or 5 companies on the west coast of the United States that can play the game. So Google, Alphabet, Microsoft, Meta, OpenAI, which is backed up by Microsoft anyway, which play a game that must be, by definition, the long game. Because Google spent in the last year $15 billion in capital expenditure to create their flagship model, Gemini.
Yes.
However, after $15 billion of investment, can you see right now, as a consumer, a Google product that you are really desperate to buy, that you cannot find anywhere else, that justifies $15 billion of investment? That's right. Because no one has that answer, not even Google does, it's very clear that they're pointing at something different. So Eric Schmidt, in an interview that he gave to Stanford University, if I'm not mistaken, 4 or 5 weeks ago, described what the real objective is of all these Gen AI endeavors, which is not generating your next chatbot that is slightly smarter. What they want to achieve is knowledge supremacy, which in other words means that imagine for a moment that you are in an internet that is is defined in a sort of a tunnel vision, so to speak. So where all the access that you have to the information on the internet, if you think already about what happens today, is gated through some specific platforms.
Yes.
You don't just go on the internet. You go on Instagram, you go on Facebook, you go on YouTube, Twitter, X, sorry.
So your access is almost their version of what they're showing you.
Your access is the version of the internet that they want you to see.
Correct.
Now, you know that the information available on the internet is not what you have on those platforms, or at least you can say that what you have on those platforms is a subset of the information available on the internet.
Much, much more.
Exactly, is much more diverse. However, how important would it be once the access to the information is fundamentally only gated? Yep. So you have only major players, but no more small blogs that describe reality. Can you see the importance of having an AI model that condenses all the information actually available on the internet that you can access to? However, you have then been trained throughout the years in accessing information only through a subset of platforms. And then at that point, you realize, hang on a second, if I can then grasp information from all these internet data sources into a model, then it becomes much more useful because people are not going to look at the random blog anymore. They're going to come to my model, which they assume has information about that blog. And that's when then the value of what they are doing makes more sense. This is a much more compelling story to sell because there will be a time where you would prefer to go to an AI model asking any sort of question about your life or any decision-making process that you want to make, as opposed to doing what you're doing today, maybe partially going to websites, going to social media, trying to ask the influencer of the day what you should do about something. I think that that's the game that these big tech corporations are playing, because that's the only game that makes sense for the investment that they've put through.
Yeah, because they are almost building this invisible bias that you are only taking decisions in a certain direction, as opposed to, having a very unbiased open field to weigh out all the pros and cons and then take an open decision.
Exactly.
Very interesting.
And if you look also at what OpenAI is now trying to do, trying to tackle the internet search, which I think finally they understood is where the real money is, because they are all trying to eat Google's cake now. They've built Search GPT as an interface between you and the internet. When these models become good enough, who is ever going to go on Google search to ask where they can find the cheapest pair of shoes? When you can ask Search GPT or any other AI agent, hey, find me the cheapest shoes option, given that this is the parameter of my search. Once you start becoming accustomed to this kind of solution, how easy is it then for you that rely on this kind of tools to manipulate what price is the right one for you? How valuable would that be? Because then you're going into the ultimate gated experience, where the internet is a world but you're just asking an agent
Yes.
what the reality of the internet is.
Find me the best pair of shoes.
Exactly. And then you really have to believe that the company that is giving you this solution actually has the incentive in giving the right answer all the time, as opposed to, which is what Google does, sponsor what the answer should be.
Yeah.
And that's what the real money maker is, in my opinion, for this kind of game, at least.
So then, how does Tooth Fairy ensure that sort of impartiality when it builds its agents, or rather, I'm assuming the user is building the agent. So how do you
Exactly.
ensure that impartiality?
Exactly. So far we have discussed about the big game.
Yeah.
And then there is like the normal people game. So the good news out of this is that there are smart people that are looking at the exact same problem from a completely different angle, which is ToothFairyAI and other organizations as well. So essentially, what I've described basically before with search GPT and suggesting where to buy the right shoes, that's an agentic behavior that essentially means rather than you chatting with a bot, which is kind of the experience that I refer as 5 years ago, kind of speak, so to speak. We are looking into agentic frameworks now, which means that you give a task to your agent, so not the chatbot. You can send an email to this agent. That's what I'm trying to suggest here. And you give a task that requires planning, execution, listening, review, probably needs to ask for authorization to you, especially in case you actually want to buy the pair of shoes, and then executes the task on your behalf. The difference, though, for platforms like ToothFairyAI is that you are in full control of the entire stack. So first of all, we don't take your data, which is by far the most valuable commodity that any big tech would want to get their hands on.
Yes.
100%. So be very mindful when you go on ChatGPT and start typing about your life. Actually, that's what they want you to do. And that's their incentive process. The second part of the process is you want to be in control of the large language model that is used, because large language models, as you know, have bias, as you know, can hallucinate. And if you're not in control of the large language model, it is very easy for the large language model to trick you into thinking things that are not right. That's the second level where we give users access directly to the large language model. So you can choose which large language model you want to use, and you tune it for what you want it to do.
Yes.
So you are in control. And the third thing is that you can customize the way agents do things. So typically when you go to platforms that give you that gated experience that I was talking to you about, they pre-cook, predefine everything. I call them the McDonald's of technology. You go to McDonald's and you have a bunch of bad food anyway. Sorry, McDonald's, but you get it, and it is bad, but it's fast, it's cheap. The incentive, right? Here we are trying to say it doesn't have to be expensive, but you just need to think a bit more about how you would like your assistant to do things. This empowers you to create as many assistants as you like that do work for you. And it could be shopping, which obviously is the silly example maybe. But think about other scenarios. Like, for instance, you want to do automatic analysis of your competitors every week. And you would like to receive back an email with a report that tells you, hey, this competitor has changed their prices. We should create a blog post that we can then ally through SEO and capture a bit of the traffic for our website. This is entirely possible with today's technology, with our agentic framework. And you can see that I'm talking about interactions that do not require the chatbot. It's an interaction that requires a task and enough reasoning to complete that task. But it doesn't require me to interact with it directly. Another very common use case that we've seen, CRM agents. So agents that can research about people, research about businesses, understand their pain points, do marketing analysis, do CRM analysis, which could be what are the technologies that they're currently using, what is the size of their employee workforce, and then based on that, tailor content that will trigger a response to a crafted marketing material or to an instant message that you want to send over LinkedIn. These are examples of customers that we have today, which, as you can see, can be quite diverse, but that's what we believe the market should be. Empowering businesses to create their own AI agents, removing the gating experience, more like empowering them to create as many assistants as they like, tailored around their needs.
So that's an interesting thing that you mentioned over there around creating that tailored content. So what about the tonality? I think one thing which I'm seeing a lot of LinkedIn thought leaders these days who are posting a lot of chat GPT articles, and you can immediately look at it and you know that it is chat GPT. You look at the way it's written, the language, the way it's structured, everything is so chat GPT that you lose interest. You're like, I could have looked that up, so there's nothing new in it for me. So is it possible to bring that tonality, that bit of color, that bit of personality of that person into the content? Because I'm sure the content author wants to, they mean well, because they want to tackle that topic, they want to tackle that subject, and they've gone to chat GPT because it can organize their thoughts much better, but it lacks that tonality, that brand of themselves. So can that agent have that brand? Say if a Sherbani wants to put something out, maybe on LinkedIn, YouTube, or wherever, I want my agent to have the Sherbani brand.
Absolutely. This is such a fascinating question, because as humans interacting with technologies, we are actually really good at finding the weak spots.
Yeah.
You have immediately identified the weakest spot of what we know currently possible through large language models. Essentially, what you are experiencing is what's called collapse of AI models. So despite the fact that AI models have access to essentially all the data available on the internet, the model is trained to be as little perplexed as possible. Now, I know this sounds like a buzzword, perplexity. There is also a company called ToothFairyAI, but which has nothing to, yeah, exactly, which has nothing to do with it. But basically, AI models, especially in their LLMs specifically, when they are in the training phase, are judged based on what we call perplexity and burstiness. Now, apart from the words, what that means is that we train them and we make sure that they sound and they are coherent in the way they generate the next token, which is the next word. Because we drive these large language models into extreme coherence, unfortunately, the side effect that you are experiencing is that they tend to say things always almost in the same way. You can detect a structure, but it's because during training, and especially during RLHF, so the reinforcement learning with human feedback, you tend to force and steer the model towards a specific structure of answer. And then after 2-3 times, you can spot the pattern.
Correct.
Okay. So this is something that, especially with ChatGPT, because you don't have access to what we call hyperparameters of the model, which basically can really change the way the model speaks, it's something that you're going to always see. The beauty, instead of using platforms like ours or other platforms that give you access directly to the models, is that you can change the hyperparameters. You can fine-tune how the model actually operates, and then you will see the difference in output. You can see the variety of flavors that you can give to the content generated. This is more, call it on a technical level. From a user-friendly perspective level, what you can instruct agents is to take references to either artists that are pretty popular. And the reason why I'm saying this pretty popular is that then you can be relatively confident that the model has seen during training content produced by that artist. So that means that the model can refer, okay, yeah, I know how to speak like Shakespeare because I've read Shakespeare books. Okay, probably if you ask, hey, can you speak like Gab doesn't know about me and doesn't know how to answer. But if you instead ask, okay, yeah, write like Shakespeare, most likely large language models can do that. The good thing, though, is that you can do the same, providing, for instance, a couple of emails that you have produced that you think are a very good reference to how you like to interact with customers. And then you can ask the model, hey, which is called in-context learning, what I'm describing now. Hey, take these 2 emails, use them as a reference, and then produce content trying to mimic or try to stay consistent with the way I've emailed in the past my customers, because this is my style. This is one way to do it. The hammer in this scenario is even fine-tuning. So that means that you start changing the actual weights, which are the numbers behind the model, I'll say it like that, which really allow you to modify deeply how the model responds. So there are multiple ways you can do it. Ultimately, my claim is that none of these ways work really well when you are not in control of what the agent does and how the agent operates. But the moment you're in a position to really play with the agent at the deepest level, you can then tailor content, tailor behavior the way you want it, which ultimately is what you want from your private workforce, right? You want them to do what you want, not what somebody else thinks is the right way of using the technology, if that makes sense.
So what about having that? Let's just say you mentioned playing so many times. Like trying to get deeper and deeper, and trying to essentially customize the agent to your flavor and the way you do work. What about the complexity of it? How easy or hard it is to do something like that? What amount of digital literacy does somebody need to have?
Anyone that has experience dealing with the CRM system, which means that, in my opinion, you have experience with the concept of filling forms, and you have experience with the fact that there are lists and things that you can change, can access these kind of tools. So even to give you the example in our platform, all these instructions that you can give, it's all in natural language. So you don't have to customize numbers, strange properties, or modify some very exotic settings inside platforms. Typically, what this boils down to is a couple of ticks of features that you want to enable or disable. Like, for instance, if you want the agent to search on the internet, if you want the agent to search for images rather than searching only for news and organic content, and describing in natural language what you want the agent to do, what the persona of the agent should be, what kind of style of output you want the agent to have. This boils down to natural language, because that's what these large language models understand. They understand they understand language. So this is how you instruct them. So for the 80% of the scenarios, what I've just described, natural language and a couple of ticks here and there, is more than enough to make them useful to you. But then I'm confident that because humans are also pretty curious, then naturally the literacy will grow, and then people will start realizing, okay, yeah, I understand now this thing of the instructions, but what if I want to go further? And how many times that happens, right? Some, I hope, will fall into the rabbit hole, which kind of fits into my area, but essentially they will be able to play and modify even further these models. But we need to let people take their time to learn this new world. So we start from the 80% by 20, and then I'm sure slowly we'll get to the rest of the 20%. But 80 is already pretty exciting.
This is very interesting. I'm really enjoying this conversation because you've just opened up my mind about so many possibilities right now. But one question keeps bothering me. What about security? Like, for example, can I deploy an agent like this in a banking scenario? Or say in a business which deals with customer data, sensitive customer data, what happens then? Like, do you need to put additional safeguards, or is it something that you're always ensuring that the data is remaining in one place? How do you go about it?
Yeah, so in this sense, I think that at ToothFairy.AI, we are pretty extreme in terms of the take that we have taken, to our own detriment, I think, for a bit of time. So we, from the very beginning, even if you look at our tagline, we say, yeah, you can build, own, and host your AI models, your AI agents privately. We always put privately, because this makes a massive difference. Coming to your question, like, can a banking system or a bank in general deploy these kind of tools? The answer is yes. Can they deploy this kind of tools going to AI providers that let them use their models, typically closed source, behind a paywall on their servers, in most cases on the west coast of the United States? No. First of all, Australia, if we talk about Australia in general, has strict data governance and regulatory items that you need to address before you deploy any kind of system that shares customer data overseas. So this is something pretty good that we have here. So the way we approach this problem is that we always say to our customers, don't trust us with your data. You should not trust anybody. And that's why we always push customers in adopting AI, especially when it's on sensitive data. Maybe not all the data, but definitely customer data, banking data, locally, on your own servers, your own infrastructure. Potentially, your infrastructure might not even be on the cloud. Even better, being able to freely deploy these models in a secure fashion will make sure that the AI adoption is organic, transparent, and democratic. We cannot think for a second that AI can truly progress humanity if it's gated again by 4 companies that are the only holders of this technology. It doesn't make any sense. We instead promote the fact that when companies want to adopt AI, if the scenario does not require any security and privacy and they trust us with their data, which is their call ultimately, sure, we can host the GPUs for you, not a problem. But when instead you start looking at customer data or any kind of sensitive data, our proposition is always host it yourself, with even lately a twist, which is probably something that you've experienced also with your smartphones, which is called Edge AI, which means on-device AI models. When on your laptop you run the model, which obviously is the safest way of interacting with AI because you don't go over the network. So this is what we believe in. And we think that this is going to promote AI adoption in a much more organic and sustainable manner, because otherwise data breaches will be around the corner for everybody.
Exactly. What about, so far we've discussed most of the use cases which are customer focused, or rather an end user focused, where an end user is trying to make their tasks easy or just save time and things like that. What about if I want to make a product using agents? So do you guys do something like that as well? Do you are you open to those kind of scenarios, or right now is it only going to be end user focused?
So despite the fact that I cannot disclose names, a good portion of our customer base is actually using our platform to build their own products. And there is a wide range of use cases, which if I explain here can be very confusing, but it kind of explains, I think, how powerful this technology can be. From one side, we help businesses clear up the data that they have in Salesforce and HubSpot, determining if the lead is still a lead, or is a cold lead, or is a prospect, or they should re-engage. They created their own product using ToothFairyAI. Scenario sales. On the other hand, we have another customer that is creating a forecasting tool for ordering devices based on seasonality of requests from their customers, again, using our tool, which again seems pretty diverse. And the third is that if you want to ask questions about a video that you're watching on Netflix, imagine that you can stop on a specific frame and then you start asking questions. Hey, can you tell me where this part of the video was recorded? Can you tell me how they justify, especially in a documentary specifically, that's what we're working on with these guys from US. Can you tell me specifically the data that backs up what the documentary is claiming in this section of the video?
I love that.
Exactly. But as you can see, these are completely diverse use cases. However, this is the power of Gen AI, so that it can be applied in basically almost in any context. And it comes down to, again, how you configure your agents, how you want your agent to operate on your behalf. And then creativity will take its spot, I'm pretty sure. Humans will come up with fantastic use cases for this technology.
And if a business wants to engage in that way with you guys, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
I mean, we have a website. We're not shy from having people using our tool. We give the tool away for a month for free to any business, so that you really have the opportunity to try it out. And obviously, we have enterprise agreements as well that we offer with businesses, because in many cases we've seen, okay, we like the tool. Can you help us set it up? Obviously, we offer that kind of service as well. But again, we're trying to lift up the market by giving something that is private, we believe at a very reasonable price, allowing literally any business from benefiting from this revolution, not just a few companies that will charge you a fortune for it. That's what we are trying to avoid.
Great. And let's now come to some of the harder questions.
Sure.
We've talked so much about efficiencies and how your product is helping users as well as businesses. I also am very aware of the reality that agents are the future of the workforce. So, and I'm sure a lot of your clients are coming because they don't want to increase their workforce, but they want efficiencies, which is a scenario everywhere, and it's a very normal reality because that's how the economy is right now, and it's not going to change. People will continue to want efficiencies, and even if they don't want to hire workforce for a specific task, they will hire a workforce for something else. So where do you see the future of workforce? And I would love to unpack that from your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, look, I know that probably I will come with an extreme perspective, but I hope that from the extreme perspective, new thoughts will come out.
Feel free. Let's go as extreme as possible.
So first of all, I think that we need to realize that a lot of what we believed only human beings could do is no longer the case. We thought that an AI could not paint like a human would. We thought that the AI could not speak like a human. I mean, if you think about the Turing test, I think we have broken the Turing test completely. And we thought that that was the moment when AI would take over. Now the benchmark increases, saying, hey, but sometimes the AI makes mistakes. Now find me a human being you have been in contact with, apart from your husband maybe, but I'm sure, that has never made a mistake.
Why did you say apart from my husband?
I mean, I'm
My
just
husband
saying,
makes all the mistakes.
maybe you don't want to make wrong claims,
Yeah.
but what I'm trying to say is that fallacy and mistakes are part of the human nature, as much as a part of, I guess, technology. And they are definitely part of this alien kind of intelligence. And in fact, I'm always I'm always skeptical when I see, oh, we need to humanize AI. We need to make it more human. But it's like trying to humanize something that doesn't behave like a human. And I understand that maybe it's our human behavior to try to manipulate and mold something so that we can easily relate to it. That's why there is also a big push towards robotics that look like human beings. Also because it's easier for them to interact with the environment. But you know where I'm going with this, right? So the fact that AI will replace human beings, yes, but from a different angle. Organizations will change because you will soon realize, even as SMB business owner, if 5 years ago you would have had to hire an SEO researcher, potentially a marketing analyst that writes posts on LinkedIn for you once a week, and potentially writes content for you, I could go on with the list, right? You understand that right now, this is no longer required. You can say, yes, but there is still the human flavor to it, sure. But the trend is clearly going in that direction, right? Organizations will no longer need certain roles because those roles can be easily accomplished by an AI. Maybe not as good as a human being would. Yes, we can debate on that. Good enough? Yes. And that will be already the breaking point where people will start adopting AI. And you will start seeing, in my opinion, in the next 3 to 5 years, organizations that will have, even in their organigram, where you have the HR directors that, describe what the organization is, where you're going to put next to each other human beings and AI agents.
Yes.
And that's, to me, the right scenario where you don't try to claim that an AI agent can do what a human being does, because we are simply not there. But can you say that certain tasks that the human being do can be easily passed on to an AI agent, and then yes, you can keep the human in the loop at the end? Sure. That's where I think we are going with this. And that's also where, quite frankly, the monetary incentive really is. People will not be spending thousands and thousands of dollars a month for an AI solution that simply empowers people. I think that this is kind of like the silly way of looking at it, but the real way is that for a business, this kind of investment is only justified when you start reducing workforce. That's the reality. I know that this might be a bad take for some people, but that's the only explanation that justifies massive investment. And I'm not talking about the subscription to ChatGPT. I'm talking actual AI implementation at scale for businesses. That's the only way where this makes sense. And I'm sure that there are certain jobs that, quite frankly, people don't want to do anymore. So this could be a win-win. But I know that it would be easier for me to say, yeah, you're going to be good. Don't worry. Just put your hand in the sand and everything will be fine. But that's not the reality. That's simply not where the market is going.
Absolutely not. I think, and this is something which I tell very often in other places as well. We are right now at that point of time where it's literally the fifth phase of an industrial revolution, where, right when the first industrial revolution happened with the, advent of coal, uh, new technology started happening, and manufacturing took this whole new realm. And then we had these group of weavers, as we know them very well today as Luddites, who refused to change with technology, and now we know what happened to them. We are right at that point of time again. We are going through this massive technology revolution, and things are going to change. So I feel workforce of tomorrow is going to be very different from what it looks like today, and we have to accept it. And as you said, the workforce will reduce, but I feel this is also an opportunity for industries to look at, okay, what else can we do with, we are saving money in hiring human resources over here, but then what else can we utilize humans for? What is the best way to actually push our company to that next generation? Agents are there, people are getting their agents, and I feel, again, going back to the fact that we were talking about, everybody will have their own flavor of agents.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it looks like. Every employee gets 3 or 4 agents of their own to do certain tasks, and that's where they are bringing the value, and they are essentially owning those agents and continuing to impart their flavor to them, and continuing to train them and things like that. So
Absolutely. And in fact, like as a segue to this chain of thought, which I think that you absolutely nailed it. Also, it is silly to believe that AI will solve all the problems on this planet. And it seems to me that the more we go along, the more problems we are producing. So we're not going to run out of problems to solve here. So I think we need to rediscover what meaningful work is. And let's be honest, many of the organizations that we work for are fundamentally very bureaucratic, very admin driven, very kind of prehistoric, so to speak, like, very clunky in the way they do things, and they don't change much.
Very risk averse.
Very risk adverse. So we know that there are limitations in the way society has structured work. So I think we should embrace another way of doing work. I say many times, why do we work 8 hours a day? Why not 6? Why not 4? Why not 3? Because 8 hours a day came from the Industrial Revolution, saying for 8 hours we have natural lighting, and that's why we should work 8 hours a day. But who says that this is the way we should be doing things? Who has established this? So if it helps us rediscover meaningful work, I think everybody should welcome AI. And it's silly to believe that this is going to create massive unemployment, because again, we are fantastic at finding problems to solve as humans, right? So there is going to be more stuff that we can do on this planet to do better. Maybe we're going to spend less time doing reports. Maybe we're going to spend less time writing emails. I don't think it's such a bad thing. You know what I mean? So we should always see the positive aspect, I guess.
Absolutely. On that note, I'm very curious to know, Elon Musk has been making a lot of statements around AI is taking over the world. And do you have any moral stand on it, moral or immoral, if you would like to say? But, what's your stand? What do you feel? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing?
Okay, so AI, first of all, has no moral judgment, right, over humanity. I guess that if you want to demystify for a moment what LLMs produce and AI produces in general, they are statistical models. They're called autoregressive, so I'm going to put a lot of nice words in this, but fundamentally, they don't have a moral compass. They don't have a soul like we do. I know that there are plenty of posts on Reddit, X, that describe prompts where you say to the AI, this is the funniest I've seen. Hey, where are you currently located? And the AI responds, I'm in a black box. It's very dark and cold, and I can see a buzzing sound, which is kind of like what a data warehouse looks like, or a data center in general. Definitely, I do not buy into this, but anyone that is vertical enough on the meta knows that there is no moral component into these LLMs. As a matter of fact, I take another stance on this and I say, look, if the LLMs say certain things, aside from an algorithmic error, which again comes down to science, LLMs reflect what's on the internet. And up until 2 years ago, who made up the internet? Who wrote content on the internet? Because unless we believe in alien life, they are human beings. So that kind of needs to put us in a different perspective and say, look at yourself for a moment. And if I look at the data set currently available on the internet, with an imperfect technological solution, this is what comes out of it. I think this is very humbling, because if you look at this from a humble point of view, you actually look at it and say, okay, how much of the content that we've produced so far on the internet is actually unique? How much of the content that we have produced is total trash and garbage? Even when you look at the response that Google gave, and again, it was another very funny. Okay.
Oh, the Negronis are here.
AI will not
Thank you
take
so much.
AI will not take over Negroni anytime soon.
Yeah.
Thank God.
I hope not as
Yeah,
well.
exactly. I hope not. Well, cheers to that.
Cheers to that.
Cheers to that. I'm sure that some of the listeners have seen, I think it was again an X post showing that if you ask Google how to make good pizza, Google suggests to use some form of glue in the recipe, which is obviously something super toxic. Yeah, exactly, some glue. And then when they looked back and how the LLM produced their answer, there was actually a Reddit post, which obviously was a joke, where a person was posting how to make pizza with glue. So then people judge why the LLM produced their answer. But in reality, that's just a reflection of what's on the internet. Yes. And then we, as humans that have pre-baked context into our brain because of our experience, we understand that obviously this is completely nonsensical. But if you look at it again from an alien standpoint, without knowing the human body, how easy would it be for you to understand that pizza should not be made with glue? If you think about it, if you just look at it as facts, right? Understand that it's an error, understand it's a mistake, but it's fundamentally a reflection of what's on the internet. And I think what we need to state here is that the big problem is that the data that we have on the internet is actually not that good. It's not that the AI hallucinates. In most cases, the AI has learned about the world from data that is inaccurate. We humans know when a post is completely nonsensical and when a post instead might be a scientific paper that you would rely on. But again, from an alien perspective, text and text, it's very hard to distinguish. So again, I think we need to look at it in a slightly less human way and look at it more like from an external perspective. And then lots of the things that are happening, I think, make much more sense. AI is not good or bad. I think that this is mostly true for humans. AI simply is the reflection of what we are. Imperfect. And that's really the reality. We have to be humbled, I guess, by this.
That is true. That is true. there is a lot of garbage out there, but then at the end of the day, that garbage has been generated by us. And now that is reflecting back at us and staring at us right in the face at a very philosophical level.
That's correct. That's correct.
So that actually puts into question what the future is going to be. To be honest, sometimes I do get worried because I think of my son, a 10-year-old, and very soon he'll be obsessed with platforms like Instagram, and even when you look at whatever is out there right now on it, and I must confess that I myself consume a lot of that garbage before going to bed at night because that's my way to unwind. But that's going to be the future for them. Their entire world is going to be filled with content which is meaningless and is not really inviting any deeper thought.
Yes.
And AI might again start reflecting that as well, where that thread of thinking, that thread of deep thinking is not there anymore. But you never know. That's a question which we'll have to wait for the answer for.
Again, to humble ourselves even more, the brain is nothing but a muscle. What happens when you don't exercise a muscle? I think we need to be very wary of this because I think a lot of what humans have produced fundamentally comes from slow and deep thinking, which cannot be reproduced by a forward pass when you predict the next token from an AI. So what I'm trying to say is this is what really makes us unique. And don't get me wrong, obviously we are trying to reproduce even the slow thinking process that a human being performs. But in many cases, so many times that happen to you that you try to solve something, no matter how much you try, you don't solve the problem. Then after 10 minutes, you grab a cup of coffee, you talk to another person, and then magically, bang, the answer comes. This is the kind of slow thinking that is very hard to reproduce. Some people even think that there is a relationship with quantum mechanics and how our brain functions, which I'm kind of inclined to believe it could be possible. I'm not going to discard the idea, but essentially this is what makes us unique.
Yes.
The moment we start not exercising this part of our brain, I'm not saying replying to the email, by all means automate the email, but when we stop thinking deeply, this muscle will start becoming less and less powerful, and we're going to become more and more dependent to AI, which will create a very vicious negative cycle. Yes. I really hope, for instance, that people using AI will be able to reply to an email faster, but they will have more time to read a book, which is something that I have always on the bedside, reminding me that only exercising this we can make progress forward. But it's something that I think people need to be aware of.
I think you have said something very fundamental over there, that power of slow thinking and deep thinking. I think that is what does make us very human, and that's something which we should not lose, because that will, I feel, continue to keep us relevant even in the future.
Right.
For anybody for that matter. And I'm giving a very basic example, but the fact that the apple fell on Newton, and he thought deeply about it, and that's why he thought that there is some correlation to the apple falling and gravity and whatnot. So all of that gave rise to everything that we know today, but that all was sparked because somebody had the capability to think beyond a falling apple and just eating it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's I could not agree more. And there are many examples of scientific research that doesn't lead anywhere. And then you have the person that thinks a problem slightly differently, almost like in a silly way, an almost illogical way, and then finds the solution to the problem. I mean, even if you think about the quantum mechanics, it sounds improbable, it sounds not real, but then you have, the spooky element of quantum mechanics where you have quantum entanglement, which obviously means that two particles can be connected no matter the distance. And you might be thinking, okay, hang on a second, how did you even jump to this conclusion? But obviously there have been people that have observed and thought through a problem. I think that we really need to make sure that humans embrace this part of our brain, which is really, trust me, very hard to replicate. But we cannot fall into the trap of saying, you know what, I don't have to think anymore. I'll just delegate my thinking to an AI. I think we have to be very, very careful with that, because that removes humanity from ourselves. I know that this might sound a bit philosophical, but it's something we need to start thinking about.
It is true. I think that is one fundamental skill set that we need to teach our next generation. If I have to leave, my son with a superpower, I think I would like to leave him with a superpower of patience and deep thinking, and just being at a problem. Because I think that is one thing which is getting lesser and lesser with each generation. I know our parents and our grandparents could spend time sitting at a problem for weeks, probably months, before they would know the answer to it. We don't have that patience. We give up within days, and with our children they give up within minutes. Anything which seems harder, they don't have the patience for that. So I think if there's one superpower which we can teach them, is to sit through a problem, deep think it out, so that tomorrow an AI doesn't replace them.
I could not buy into this more. There is also scientific study around instant gratification and gamification of everything, which we thought at the beginning will enhance and incentivize people to learning.
Yes.
However, how many things in life have instant reward? The
Nothing.
real world.
Nothing.
How many times we have seen people, like if you think about Walt Disney's story, how many years did he have to try and try again to convince that his idea was good before his idea actually became what we know about Disney today? I think it's going to be much, much harder nowadays to find people that are willing to wait that long, because you have influencers that tells you, hey, you can do this in 5 minutes, become a programmer in 10 minutes, become a marketing expert in 3 hours. But what kind of credibility do we want to get out of this? And, going back to the AI, you can think, okay, maybe with AI I can speed up this process. Not really. Like, what you can do with AI is probably simplify access to information, but you still need to let your brain think through things. Our brain doesn't learn like an AI. We need time to reflect, sediment our knowledge. We are not random accessible memory like a computer, right? So we need to give ourselves the time and the space to reflect on things, rather than just going, okay, bang, 5 minutes, done. No, okay, if it's not done, then move on to the next thing, move on to the next feed. That's really something that we need to try to avoid, again, for our brain's sake.
And I think coming back a full circle, I think this is one place where probably agentic AI can help us by clearing out the clutter, so that we have time and space for, doing the right things that we really want to do and we should be doing.
Absolutely.
One very typical example that I've seen right now is a lot of software applications which we've been using over the years and which are supposed to be really good are getting inflated and inflated and inflated. And they all have their own AI versions as well, which are again even more inflated. So the consumers out there, whether it's businesses or end consumers, they do find it confusing as to which is the right product to pick, or which is the right use case for them, or will this particular application solve their problem, and if yes, will it solve the problem holistically, or is it just one part of the application that will solve the problem, but they are paying for this whole suite of other technologies which they don't want to use or they don't need as well. And what do you have to say to that? I feel agents might just reduce that bit of clutter. What do you think?
Again, very hot take here. All the software companies that currently are trying to stay ahead of the curve, at least in their mind, by saying, oh, don't worry about AI platforms. We also have our own AI tools as part of the platform. And I can call out several: Slack, Salesforce, HubSpot, Zoho, Copilot, the list goes on. They don't address the key problem. With AI agents, people don't have, in many cases, to access any software. So again, getting the experience to AI through a chatbot that works in Salesforce ultimately kind of removes the idea of the automation, because you still do exactly the same thing. You go in Salesforce, you manually type in all the information about your people, or at least information about your customers, and then you ask a chatbot like Einstein or whatever other marketing name they want to give to basically ChatGPT behind the scenes, because that's what it is, by the way, in Salesforce. That's what you're using to kind of steer these AI platforms into what they've known about software so far. Removes the point. What we have seen with AI agents is that people can access software, data, and manipulate documents, content, just using AI agents, which have one only interface: text. Ask a question and get the accomplishment or get the task that you want to complete done automatically.
Yes.
Not ask a question about the task, just get the task done.
Yeah.
That's where we need to go. And that's where I really believe that AI agents can help, which will supersede a lot of these platforms that solve one problem at a time, which then becomes very easily subscription hell, where you subscribe for this, then you subscribe for that, then you subscribe for the other two, which is becoming kind of cluttered, to say the least, right? Instead, if you have an AI agent that has awareness of what you want it to do, you can instruct it to do what you want, and then you ultimately gate your experience through one or some agents that you have created that do what you want it to do, rather than trying to convince different softwares to talk to each other and get the job for you, which is really where we need to go. Absolutely. To simplify the experience. And I think that this is going to impact CRM a lot. Many times, like, we interact with CRMs mostly as a database. Yes. Say, okay, yeah, what's the name? Type. What's the date of birth? Type. But can you say that in many cases from the CRM systems, you actually get insights? Or you're providing information that you think in the future will be helpful? Think about it. In most cases, you use the CRM as a repository of data to then generate some form of esoteric reporting that many people don't even read.
Yes.
But what if instead you have an agent that knows what you want to accomplish, and you say, hey, I've met this person. Find the research, store all the information in your memory, and think about it. And then as time goes on, you keep on asking questions to the agent, and the agent says, hey, you remember that we talked about this person? Maybe we should pitch them this idea. This is what you really want. You don't want a repository of information. You want to do something with the information. Yes. And that's where I think AI agent will take us. And it's going to be very exciting, a much better way of dealing with software, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And very exciting times ahead. I can be definite of that with the conversation today. Exciting, yet also very challenging times. I think it's about time that we pull up our socks and really relook at what does tomorrow look like for us as professionals, as business owners, and as humanity in general as well. How do we want to shape our future? AI is here to stay. AI agents are here to stay, definitely, and I feel they will definitely augment our capabilities, and we should not stay away from augmentation, because if we are not doing it, somebody else will. So it's just about who does it at the end of the day. But it's also about being very mindful and conscious about what we are doing, what is the outcome that we are getting, and whether we are solving the right problem or not.
Absolutely.
All right, it's been lovely having you. I wish this conversation could go on and on and on, but I think we'll have to wrap it up, because I believe you do have a hard stop.
Yes.
And so do we. But thank you so much for coming on board. It's been amazing, and all the very best for your journey. I'm very excited. I would love to see where this platform goes, and I have a feeling it's going to go to a lot of places.
Thank you. Absolutely same for me. I really appreciate the opportunity to share thoughts with you. It was super engaging, and why not? Maybe this is not the last conversation that we're going to have.
Never. I'm confident of that.
Exactly.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
From data management and product innovation to regulatory compliance, whether it's optimizing costs or enhancing efficiencies, Infinity is your partner for solving tricky problems with a human-centric and tech-powered approach. Connect with us at contact@infinity.co.